Good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's webinar, From Crisis to Resilience, Addressing Energy Affordability, Decarbonisation and Competitiveness in Romania, organized jointly by Clinia Task Force and Energy Policy Group. I'm Tamara Lagurashvili, Director of Central and Eastern Europe at CEETF, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you to today's conversation. Today's conversation is part of the CEETalks series, our flagship project, which looks at the unique challenges and opportunities of the energy transition and decarbonization across Central and Eastern Europe. We have already hosted 3 webinars looking at Central and Eastern Europe's role in the global decarbonization fora, as well as Poland's industrial transformation challenges. And today's webinar is really focusing on Romania's twin challenges of ensuring the affordable energy for their consumers, household and industry, as well as managing the limited fiscal space. Obviously, with major global geopolitical shifts happening in Europe and beyond, as well as major communications coming from the European Commission, notably much anticipated Clean Industrial Deal, as well as Action Plan for Affordable Energy, there is a lot of emphasis on making sure that there is a homegrown clean technologies happening in Europe, as well as there is much more focus and incentives happening to the industrial competitiveness. In order to unlock some of those conversations and focusing on Romania today, we have a stellar panel and we have 90 minutes approximately to dwell into the complexities of the energy transition and decarbonization challenges. We have 2 sessions. We are first starting with the fireside chat, and I would like to welcome Mr. Sorin Elisai, General Director, General Directorate for Energy Policies and Green Deal at the Ministry of Energy of Romania. Good morning, Mr. Elisai. It's really nice to have you here. And we have Mr. Radu Dudau, President and co-founder of Energy Policy Group. Good morning, Radu. It's really lovely to have you here. And afterwards, we will go in the panel discussion with our notable panel, most notably Tudor Constantinescu, Principal Advisor at Director General for Energy, European Commission, Daniela Daraban, Executive Director, Federation of Associations of Energy Utility Companies, Liviu Gavrila, Vice President, Romanian Wind Energy Association, Gheorghe Vișan, Director, Energy Markets Division, Transelectrica, Mihnea Satuti, Executive Director, Energy Policy Group. Thank you all very much for joining today's conversation. I think that our attendees are in for a real treat if they are Romania geeks and really worry about energy transition challenges ahead of us. So with that, I would like to now get back to you, Radu, for your opening remarks and the fireside chat.
Thank you so much, Tamara. Good morning, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. It's such a privilege for EPG to be partnering again with CEETF in organizing timely and relevant discussion. This time with a definite focus on Romania. In our country, as everywhere else in Europe, the word of the day is reducing the cost of energy, especially in today's geopolitical context, industrial competitiveness, but overall energy affordability, I would say, has turned into a critical policy priority. And we're having this conversation on the heels of 2 consequential documents published by the European Commission. It's certainly the Clean Industrial Deal, but also this part dealing with the instruments of reducing the energy costs, the action plan for affordable energy. In a way, unsurprisingly, the European Union is doubling down on the principle of the energy transition, decarbonization, transition toward the electrification of the energy sector, bolstering energy grids, energy efficiency, of course, digitalization, and interconnectiveness. All this has been known. I think the novelty is probably that this document acknowledge a number of practical matters that require immediate action, raised by the industry all across the European Union. Now, in tackling these elements, I'm very honored to be conducting in the opening of or in prefacing the upcoming panel a one-on-one conversation with probably the most consequential public servant in the energy field, Sorin Elisei, the General Director for Energy Planning in the Energy Ministry. So I'm really pleased to discuss a few things with Sorin, because I know that he's at the center stage of all these efforts by the Romanian government to tackle with these challenges in really a time of crisis. We're still in a time of tremendous pressure on our energy system and our economy. So things like, of course, the energy price cap, investing in grids, implementing the many power generation projects that have been signed by the ministry through, let's say, the Modernization Fund and National Plan for Recovery and Resilience, and so on. So, Sorin, I would just invite you to open with what do you think are the main challenges and the most important things that your ministry has been undertaking?
Thank you, first of all, for the invitation. I hope you can hear me well. Thank you, Radu, for your kind words. I would complement your comment on the crisis that we do experience, and my belief is that the changing geopolitical context will also add, I would say, in the near future, additional flavors to these discussions. But I would like to be practical and tell you how we are tackling, let's say, one by one, the topics that you have chosen for today's discussion. So the strategy was and is focused on basically bringing supply, more supply of electricity than the demand. The current price cap or the issues that we had in the past were mostly due to the fact that our consumption is not met by our internal generation facilities. And overall in the region, you may very well know that apart from our 3 gigawatts lack of flexibility, we have another 3 gigawatts of lack of flexibility in Bulgaria and Greece. And on top of that, the issues with the Republic of Moldova. But we think that we supported and incentivized generation, especially of electricity, especially from renewable sources, both large scale and decentralized, and this will continue. We do acknowledge that we need to find a way to have grids and have grids operators delivering at least on time, if not faster, the projects that would allow the grid to basically take the electricity produced. We have implemented the financing opportunities also in the storage area, and we will continue to do that. And that is one aspect. The second aspect is still acknowledging that we are living basically on an internal market. We would like, and we have pushed this, and I think that the Commission acknowledged, including in the communication related to energy affordability, that something has to be done on interconnections. And interconnections in our area suffer, let's say, from two major bottlenecks. It's either a physical congestion, or in times where we do not have congestions, we experience prices because of the differences between the flow-based, the core region and the Southeast European region, and that led, at least in the summer, to some prices that were well above, if not at some point in times, the most expensive electricity on the day-ahead market in the entire European Union. I would, let's say, on the energy affordability, once we have implemented these projects, once we manage to solve these bottlenecks, it's also important for us to keep the market regulations in a state that basically enables the market to provide a price signal which is, let's say, according to the market fundamentals. And this is in this regard, this is our thinking on the topics related to energy affordability.
Yeah, thank you. I think, I mean, definitely you're right about raising the issue along with the energy ministries in Greece and Bulgaria of this situation for Southeast Europe being de facto, well, somewhat decoupled from the, let's say, European power markets at large, by through a obvious deficit of interconnectivity, probably between Austria and Hungary. Of course, the related issue is how can we speed up implementing the power generation projects that will kind of make up for the deficit in power generation, but also in flexibility that you mentioned, and this is going to be a challenge. Now, getting to the next point I want to raise, I'll use again the framework of this action plan for affordable energy. The Commission structured it in 4 pillars, and the number of actions, it's not such easy to follow it, but I find more instructive maybe the first pillar with this clear title, lowering energy costs. And among the interesting measures that are proposed there, one is to deal with the increasing network costs all across the EU, but definitely in Romania. So there is this acknowledgement that by moving towards electrification and integrating more and more renewables, you have increasing costs with this dispatching and ensuring flexibility. And basically the proposal is to come up with a new methodology to optimize this network costs. And this is something that the Commission is promising to do in the second semester of 2025 already. Interesting to follow. And the second one that has never been really discussed in Romania is to revise the energy taxation a bit. Again, there is a context. The Commission wants to revise the energy taxation directive. They are going to asked for input from all member states. But there are clear suggestions there about, let's say, balancing a bit the odds of power versus fossil fuels, decreasing taxation in terms of VAT and other excises and levies on power as opposed to fossil fuels. Is this something that we are considering, or are we capable, or is the time right to go in that direction as well, Sorin, or do you think there are other priorities right now?
Well, I would say, first of all, related to the energy taxation directive, I think we are no near a compromise between the all member states. There have been discussions that are already undergoing for, I would say, 2 or 3 years. Nevertheless, I would have 2 comments. There could be different ways of arriving to the same output, to the same result of lowering, for example, grid costs. And of course, I see here it's also Dana has joined and probably will speak. But in the end, it will be about where the money are coming from, because grid reinforcement and grid investments, we acknowledge that they are needed. And this is not based on a study. This is not based on looking at what's happening at EU level. This is coming from the beneficiaries that have signed financing contracts to basically build power generation facilities. So it's in reality, it's from the greenfield, as I like to say. So again, as I said in my introductory remark, a methodology or a way of lowering grid costs via securing financing for the operators in many ways, not only grants, but also financial instruments that would also address maybe the portion of the distribution tariff that it is affected by that. And if we are looking at the structure of the distribution tariff today, I would dare to say that we need to have an analysis of the impact of the decentralized power generation, which is spurring really in Romania. So everybody knows the number of consumers. Everybody knows that we have in capacity exceeded many other technologies. But in reality, I think that on the ground, once I would solve the grid issue, at least this is my perspective, there's also an acknowledgement of the decrease of the grid losses that both from a technical perspective and thus from a commercial perspective, once the grid losses make up for 1/3 of the value of the distribution tariff currently, that it is a solution. So what I'm trying to say, without getting into too many details, is that we have to address this issue looking at the building block of the distribution tariff or any other cost that it is in the invoice. And with the taxation, I would definitely say that the Ministry of Finance wouldn't like to have VAT removed from electricity. That is, I think, until, and the midterm structural budget, which has to be available for everybody. But we need to keep budget deficits under control.
Absolutely, you're right. I think you made the right points. I think also that even that if there is some inertia in some institutions of the state, because there are more urgent challenges, such as let's say keeping the energy price to final consumers as low as possible, or cashing in as much energy taxation as possible in such an economically or fiscally difficult context. We also have to face the urgency of investing in the grid, because the notion that we are somehow aiding the final energy consumers by not speeding up investment is flawed. So, and I will just mention here a suggestion by the Commission that the government should, for instance, consider enabling using budget funds to enable faster depreciation for grid investors while avoiding price spikes, which is a bit out of the box and also difficult in a context of budgetary deficit. But this is the urgency of investing in grids. Since we have only 2 or 3 minutes remaining, it's interesting that for lowering energy supply, the cost of energy supplies, the Commission is again emphasizing forward contracts and de-risking. So basically, PPAs, long-term, encouraging contracts for difference. So it's I think commendable that the government has managed to successfully close the first tender for CFDs. But an interesting next step is to couple CFDs and PPAs. We used to basically think in terms of either CFDs or PPAs, but we will have to do more and even couple this. If you wanted to add something on this, yeah.
I believe rather that the winners in the first round and the winners of the second round, I would base, let's say that, I would say that they have enough imagination to really put the projects. And I think here, once we solve the issue of the financing, because basically CFD has provided, at least to my knowledge, a sort of a security or a guarantee to the bank. And now banks are very eager to finance CFDs. I think that the mechanism has been, let's say, understood. And of course, we would like to evolve and have in the second round a series of improvements. I would spend a couple of seconds when you said about CFDs and PPAs in the electricity market design. For us, it's also important that we have seen provisions related to supplier risk management, which in a sense is an issue today in terms of affordability when we are looking at the way in which suppliers, because in a sense, we would have in the value chain at least solved or hopefully solved the issue of supply that is over the demand, but then the suppliers are the ones that are interacting directly with the customers on the market, and they have to basically take and incorporate this, I wouldn't say electricity, but again, I would say price signals that are according to the market fundamentals, and then translate it to the customers. Because decarbonization is also on the agenda, I would just like to highlight or pinpoint that to a certain extent, we are still waiting for a Commission roadmap on phasing out Russian fossil fuels. And that, I would say, in my opinion, would be a cornerstone in what's going to happen with the overall agenda at the European Union level. So this would also maybe address issues of competitiveness that are raised by final clients in the Romanian market. We are having so many meetings with customers that are really pressuring for a decrease of electricity and gas prices on the Romanian. And they are saying that we are not competitive anymore for quite some time in comparison with other markets.
Indeed, Sorin, this is the critical issue, and this is also the reason for our conversation. I would like to follow up on a couple of other issues, but there is no time left, unfortunately. I'm sure the panel will take up and develop some of these issues, and maybe also point out critical stuff that we haven't. We'll leave it at that. I thank you very much for this conversation, and I will now turn the floor back to Tamara. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Radu. Thank you very much, Mr. Alise, for teeing us up very nicely for the conversation and some of the concerns that you have outlined, Mr. Alise, about the budget deficit and the challenges and the shortcomings that the countries like Romania, but also wider Southeast Europe might face in implementing some of the provisions laid out in the Action Plan for Affordable Energy. Very clearly heard about the interconnectors, which is also going to be one of the key issues tackling today, as well as having a nice impact assessment and provisions about the cost regarding the decentralized power generation in Romania. So thank you very much for that. And I would really like now to restart with our esteemed panel, and for all of our attendees who have joined right now, I would like to reintroduce them. Once again, we are joined today by the variety of the expertise from across the field. Tudor Constantinescu, Principal Advisor, Director General for Energy, European Commission. Daniela Daraban, Executive Director, Federation of Associations of Energy Utility Companies. Liviu Gavrila, Vice President, Romanian Wind Energy Association. Gheorghe Shan, Director, Energy Markets Division, Transelectrica. And Mihnea Satuti, Executive Director, Energy Policy Group. Thank you very much again for joining. And I think that Radu and Mr. Alise definitely have given us a lot of good insights for this conversation. Mr. Constantinescu, I see that you have joined our conversation, and really in the beginning, in the fireside chat with the Ministry of Energy of Romania, we have delved into some of the provisions of the Action Plan for Affordable Energy, and especially some of its provisions about lowering the taxation and what it might imply for the countries like Romania and the wider Central and Eastern Europe, who are already tackling with the budgetary deficit. So I think it would be really helpful for you and for our audience if you could give us kind of a high-level overview once again. What is that European Commission tries to accomplish with the action plan, especially in this tumultuous environment with the new geopolitical reality that we are experiencing on the daily basis, and how Romania, with its challenges and opportunities, could benefit from this action plan. And thank you very much for joining.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation. Sorry, I couldn't make it a bit earlier, so unfortunately I cannot refer to what the speakers have said before. But anyhow, thank you, and pleased to give you some elements which I think can stay valid in any circumstances. And it's true that we live through a period of a lot of volatility, but there are some fundamentals in the economics also of the energy system which we think will stay valid and which are important for Romania as well to further consider. It's true that also based on the analysis of the well-known Draghi report, we have seen the issue of competitiveness for the new commission. The president underlined that this would be perhaps the most important direction in this commission, which will not contradict, but in a way reinforce the provisions of the carbon neutrality objective of 2050, while at the same time looking at the most cost-effective measures and also the steps, intermediary steps to get there. In this context, the Commission came in these 100 days, among others, with the Clean Industrial Deal and the Affordable Energy Action Plan, which recognize, first of all, the fact that if you look at the segment of population, about 46 million Europeans are affected by the energy prices and live under the threshold of so-called energy poverty or threat. On the other hand, for industry, the prices are also considered relatively high. And so energy prices, actually retail electricity prices doubled compared to the period 2014-2020. So, and this in a context where for the electricity, we rely still about 30% on fossil fuels. And these fossil fuels, there are still subsidies on fossil fuels, and plus the volatility driven by the different conditions, including the war in Ukraine and so on. So in this context, of course, we had to look at what can be done in short term, what can be done in medium term. And referring first to the Affordable Energy Action Plan, this has been structured on 4 pillars with 8 concrete actions. First, about reducing energy costs. From the last words I have heard, I think this was a little bit addressed, no, on how and to what extent possible, of course, to address the issue of taxation and to reduce, but also the network tariffs. I would add here also in certain countries, and we know well also in Romania, the issue of energy losses, including in transport distribution, are an important component in the final prices. If we look at Eurostat statistics as well. Now, in terms of electricity, trying to accelerate, on one hand, the permitting time. We saw for wind, for example, before the crisis, we had 7, even 10 years for offshore. Now, it has been significantly reduced. We had good examples, for example, in Germany, and we see the results of that. Then the long-term contracts and power purchase agreements can, of course, help as well. And again, modernize the grid, make investments in the grids at all levels, including on the interconnections, which is very important for the Southeastern European region as well. On gas, what we witnessed were also high wholesale prices. If we compare with the US, 5 times higher, and before the crisis, were also 2, maybe sometimes 3 times higher, but not 5 times higher, which of course is a threat for competitiveness. We have established now a gas market task force, which will start this year to look into the reasons and what can be eventually done to scrutinize and intervene when there are also abuses of the markets and so on. So this is about the reduction part of the cost. But there are also some, another pillar is on structural changes, which are also very important, looking more at long term. So here, one thing is about electrification, an electrification action plan, which we plan to have, and which, based on our estimates, if we move towards 32% share of electricity by 2030 compared to 23% now, would help actually to reduce also the energy bills by about 32 billions. Then another important component we know is the final energy consumption, in particular for households, is a heating. So for heating and cooling, we also try to come with a strategy, encourage more also other solutions like heat pumps coupled with renewables. And even for this, we can see a potential of reduction of fossil fuel imports of about 60 billion euros. Then the strategic roadmap on digitalization and IA, that's important, and also a white paper on market integration is planned for next year. All this will require, of course, investments also for infrastructure. We speak about 570 billion euro annually. So, and this is a significant amount, which will require a clean energy investment strategy, which we plan to do eventually by the end of this year. And combining this also with an investment plan for nuclear, the so-called PINK, plus an SMR communication. So all technologies, clean technologies, would have to find a way to get more access to the market, and at the same time the market to benefit from the potential they have in reducing overall the long-term cost. We also need a coordinated system, a coordinated delivery with governments, investors, and industries. This is a third pillar, which is important across the value chain. And last but not least, an EU energy security framework to strengthen the resilience from all points of view and the cross-border cooperation plus the demand management in a way which to secure the energy. This is by and large the structure and the main elements of the Affordable Energy Action Plan, which is an integral part of the Clean Industrial Action Plan as well, and which, if you ask me, that's important, and it's particularly important also for that region, for Southeastern Europe and for Romania, because to achieve competitiveness, it's very important, and to have affordable energy is also to have a stable revenue and to have industries and manufacturing capabilities in Europe. And this is even more important in those regions which we know we are very, very much affected, or they were affected so far by different circumstances, and they really need to reindustrialize. And to reindustrialize, and this is what is in the Clean Industrial Deal, there are, first of all, the way to address energy-intensive industries on one hand, combined with the demand for clean, the second pillar will be the demand for clean products and all the measures, including public procurement, with not only price criteria, but also non-price criteria to support this manufacturing. And here, about 100 billion should be mobilized to support EU manufacturing. And there is a whole revision of the state aid framework, which countries should also try to take advantage, combine with the existing EU funding, but also try to create a framework to attract even more private investments. I mentioned before the figure of 570 billion at EU level. It's clear that this cannot come just from public money. The public money can drive and maybe shows direction and support certain projects, but the bulk of financing has to come from the private sector. And this is, I think, the most important element, which will be, of course, speaking about financing, in addition to the state aid framework, we'll have the innovation fund, we'll have an industrial decarbonization bank, if not a bit of the model we had on hydrogen, with a hydrogen bank, with auction as a service, an important element which started to show some results. And of course, with increased financial guarantees, which we can try to support. Now, all this will have to be combined with an integration also at the global level, with the so-called clean trade investment partnerships, which will be important at EU level at least to develop, and with some rules on anti-dumping under the trade defense. And the countries in the region can also, of course, take advantage of this and try to position themselves, identifying, first of all, in what to invest, what are the opportunities, if you want, kind of, we had in the past some programs on smart specialization, where it's the potential advantage. There are technologies and solutions at hand and local, like, for example, with the geothermal and not only, and solar and so on, which they have to, if they want to tap the opportunity which is there and to integrate energy and industrial policies, they may wish to start with those solutions where the potential lies in those countries. But I will stop here, and of course, if needed, I can intervene further. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Constantinescu. I would like to encourage the speakers on the panel, if there are any reaction that you have to your fellow speakers, just use the virtual hand, and also would like to also encourage the attendees to post their questions in the Q&A chat. Just like one rather cheeky follow-up question, Mr. Constantinescu, to you before we go to the other speakers. One of the issues that has been flagged during the fireside chat, but also multiple times when it comes to kind of the price differential for the Southeast Europe, is that the region is not yet fully integrated within the energy market. And one of the prime goals, the way I read of the action plan for affordable energy, is to complete the EU Energy Union. So to have a truly energy union in this regard. Do you anticipate that the way it stands right now, the action plan, that Southeast Europe will be successful and achieve this full integration with the EU electricity market, and also will benefit for more stability with the prices, and which comes also with the competitiveness?
Thank you. Of course, for this to happen, first of all, on our side, on the Commission side, since years we drive this process in the CESEC, in particular, supporting these interconnections, being electricity, being gas. Now we don't support so much on gas because of the taxonomy and the whole ideas about the objective on decarbonization, and the main projects on gas have been already made to a large extent or started, and they can run on a commercial basis. But in some cases, some reinforcements may be necessary, and of course we acknowledge that as well. Again, on the other hand, on electricity, on hydrogen projects, the CEF is continuing to support, and the CESEC to identify the main priorities. That's, I think, important. I think it's also important for the region to understand that not everyone can be self-sufficient and an exporter. Because if everyone just tries to export to each other neighbor country, this will not help optimize in the end. So this requires a bit of more understanding and cooperation together. This is clear, and also to streamline. It's not worth to duplicate sometimes infrastructure. It's better to make best use of the existing infrastructure, and in some cases where it's necessary to build. And this is very much the case for electricity, and we have seen from last summer interconnections which to be reliable, but to have also a good planning of operations, good planning of maintenance in order to avoid crisis situations. So in addition, then of course to make best use of the potential all the countries have in the region, including onshore and offshore renewables, this potential is still huge and not completely tapped. There is still much to do on energy efficiency to moderate the energy demand, and this is not a little dimension in those discussions on affordability, because what we have seen, for example, the highest number of jobs created per million euro invested are actually in energy efficiency. And these are local jobs which stay there, if it is for particular for buildings renovation and so on. These are the studies, analysis made at EU level, but also at the global level by the International Energy Agency. So it's a huge potential to tap in this respect, in addition to interconnection, in addition or in complementing the work on tapping the potential for local renewables. So I gave the example before of geothermal, but not only, and starting to developing and contributing to the value chains which are being developed at EU level. All the provisions which are already in the Net Zero Industry Act, with the 40% manufacturing of the necessary technologies in Europe, with a 15% objective of exporting those technologies on the global market, they have to see in what the competencies are and how to invest and to use the existing infrastructure and increase the skills, and which are very much necessary across Europe, to be able to position them and to contribute to the EU-wide market in all senses, including industrial and, of course, energy.
Thank you very much. Mr. Vishan, I see that you have reaction that's limited for maybe 2 minutes, so I can go then to the next speaker for the intervention. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. It's very educative what Mr. Constantinescu told us about the future intentions, because they are intentions. I just hope as a market, let's say, expert, that will work, because we've seen the outcome of the Green Deal, doubling the prices. And what happens, actually, we are very well interconnected. So Tamara, I'm surprised but I will tell you, Romania is extremely well interconnected in the market. So we are in the two regions, core and southeast, and the market operates well, very good, according to the methodologies. And now we are intending to take on board states from West Balkan 6, and that is disturbing. We have to deal with the lack of energy in Ukraine because Ukraine, their system is destroyed. So another export we have to deal with from our countries to Ukraine, Moldova as well. So what we intend now to do has to be taken into account the real life. Okay, having good intentions is not enough. Living pragmatically, it's a must. So I would be more wise, in my opinion, would be to take step by step each proposal of the Commission to see how it's fitting in on different countries or different states or regions, to see if really, and this is on the brackets, heat pumps are fitted for Romania, where the average salary is 600 euros per month. And we have to take into account what it's fitting for us, what is fitting for Southeast region. We are also in the core region with 14 states from Central Europe and West Europe. So it should be mapped better what are intentions with the reality and the possibility. That's clear. We have to take into account.
Thank you. May I have a quick reaction just to answer?
Just
First
1
of all,
minute, yes. Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah.
First of all, of course, indeed, and we always said that local national circumstances have to be reflected. For this, the member countries have to draw their own plans. For this, they have their own national energy and climate plans. For this, have to make their own investment and industrial strategies because they know best, and we can check and work together and support in this. Second, I would not blame the Green Deal for the high energy prices in this context, because the Green Deal was just starting to be implemented. It didn't have time to have this. The reason was, as you know, the reduction, first of all, in 2021 of the supply of gas from Russia. Then it was a war coming, and the things deteriorated further. We had to, in an emergency, to start to import from other sources and to take measures in short term. So this had nothing to do with the Green Deal. On the contrary, what we have seen for the countries who have started to, who are advancing more on renewables, on efficiency, and building the industries around these technologies, they have clear benefits in terms of job creation. They have clear benefits in terms of exports, of trade balance, and so on. So it can, the energy system and the industries have to evolve as well. And I think that's very important. And anchoring into or being reluctant to engage into this course may not necessarily need to benefit. So we are not as rich, and for example, in gas to think that we can build for the next decades a whole economy just on gas. And even then, if it is to exploit gas, what kind of manufacturing industries we have on this in current times? So I think it's a bait more in the hands of member states and the will, and which are willing to support also to do these plans and to develop, taking into account their circumstances, but also the global trends, the new technologies which appear and which become competitive. So thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Ms. Darwin, next to you, I think we have spent a bit of time already discussing the potential implications of the Affordable Action Plan. I think a lot of is to be seen still in the coming months and years, obviously. But just like to go to the national level, in Romania, to elevate some of the pressure of the unaffordable energy for the consumers, for the households and the industry. Of course, the government has tried to mitigate that by introducing and now extending the price cap. For our non-Romanian audience, kind of as a point of clarification, this extension is for electricity until June and for gas for 1 more year. And while it obviously brings the short-term relief to the vulnerable household, it also comes with some of those negative consequences, like distorting the price signals and potentially delaying the investments in the infrastructure, in the renewable uptake. So could you tell us a little bit from your perspective, how this intended or unintended negative consequences could be elevated that comes from short-term relief mechanism like the price cap, and if there is any alternatives that Romanian government should be looking into.
Hi, thank you very much, and was very good to listen to all the invitees you had and interesting discussion before. I took some notes and I will address a couple of points too, trying to follow the time constraints I have to. Just one point I would like to make. Yes, he's right. Romania recent decisions to extend the electricity and natural gas price. It's actually in addition to a package that we implemented back in 2021 in the context that was somehow easy to explain because we had this severe price spike on energy in 2020, 2021, 2022, even. Still, Romania is continuing to implement this scheme. And in addition to what the risks you mentioned, I would point out a specific risk we have and we are going to have to mitigate on the Romanian market. It's related to the way how the scheme is working, because it's somehow, the decision was to be pre-financed by the suppliers. So we are facing serious liquidity constraints and operational problems from the supplier's point of view, because this scheme was backed up with the support of the suppliers, which probably most of them had to go and borrow money. And we are now on the third year of implementation with serious delays on the reimbursement from the government. And mostly this is coming because of bureaucratic delays, budget constraints, and this is something that led to waiting time, much longer waiting time for the suppliers to get to be refunded, because initially the law established 45 days. These terms are not respected, and last year in the law have been deleted. So somehow the scheme in Romania is creating a serious problem on the supply sectors. And I would say that unlikely, like in countries like France or Germany, where we have seen like government-backed solution for liquidity support, like state guarantees, support to have access to financing with lower cost. This has not happened in Romania. So to respond to your question, how we see the situation, definitely we need to see prior to move back to the free market. We have to see concrete measures to mitigate these risks on the supply market. So we have to see a more efficient reimbursement mechanism. They have to reduce the gap between the time when the suppliers are covering the real cost and of course the government shall pay the differences. We have to see clear deadlines for the payments and assessment of the request for the reimbursement. Definitely, we have to see a strategy for a gradual exit. And I think this strategy has to start with a clear decision on which are the customers to be to continue to be supported by the government, because in Romania we have this price cap applicable to everybody. All customers are somehow protected by this price cap. So without to summarize, without an efficient reimbursement mechanism and a pricing system probably that is addressing the vulnerable consumers, I'm a supporter of revisiting this a local scheme of implementing the support for vulnerable consumers. But still, this scheme has to be budgeted correctly. And definitely, we have to discuss about a gradual exit strategy because we are facing, as you all know, a new election period. And I dare to say that maybe a clear decision last year was somehow delayed because of the political challenges too. Still, we have a government in place, a new majority in the parliament that can face and come with a decision that the market requires. Otherwise, any disruption on the supply market will impact for sure any strategy Romania has in putting in place new capacities for energy. For sure will impact all these instruments that Romania are considering right now to come in a mid long term with a more sustainable pricing strategy like CFD, PPA. I mean, supply sector is playing a critical role in implementing all these instruments that we see as real instruments for getting in a right place in terms of sustainable pricing and affordability, of course.
Thank you, Ms. Saraban. And I have noted there in the bolds that there has to be the gradual exit strategy for the price cap and some of the challenges that you have noted. I think we will be touching a little bit later also the PPA CFD is kind of the blended formula that is presented in the action plan a bit later, and would be also curious to hear both reviews and also Mr. Constantinescu's opinions from the Commission's end. But before that, I think going to you, Mihnea, in the fireside chat, Radu has alluded obviously to the issues that country like Romania might face when it comes to lowering the taxes in the action plan for affordable energy. We have seen quite clearly that the European Commission tries to lower the electricity taxes and removal of the non-energy components. And some of the issues with managing the limited fiscal space, which is not really only unique for Romania, but for the countries in the wider Central and Southeast Europe, might face more challenges than in the rest of Europe. So if you could talk a little bit about this from the EPG's perspective, but also talk about the trade-offs between the subsidizing the vulnerable household that Mr. Arban has mentioned and subsidizing the industries.
Yeah, of course. Thanks a lot, Tamara, and very glad to be part of this conversation. And yeah, very interesting inputs by all the previous speakers. I'm sure the conversation will continue to pick up. To be honest, it's always bad timing, it seems, for Romania. It's a bit unfortunate. We ran a small deficit for years, but now we're at a time at which Europe wants to do industrial policy again. We're increasing defense spending. We've had two major crises that required fiscal stimulus to get the economy out of. We ended up in a situation in which obviously we are quite, the fiscal space is quite tight. So whenever we speak about reducing taxes, levies, non-energy related taxation on the energy prices, that's going to be quite problematic. I think that it's important to delve in a bit into the different components of the energy bill and discuss a bit what can be done in each of them according to the Affordable Energy Action Plan, but also according to some of the things that have already been said in the panel so far. So for the energy cost component, I think that is relatively clear that on the short term, we are going to struggle to bring prices down. Europe has a lack of competitive energy prices, which will continue to be the case. That's mainly been driven by gas prices, where Europe now increasingly more pays basically an LNG premium because production domestically is relatively low. We moved from piped gas to LNG from the US, which of course comes at a premium cost. So the long-term promise of renewables is that that part of the energy bill will decrease. We can discuss about how that may happen, my bet is that it will, but we will not be seeing that on a very short-term basis. For the network charges, that's the component that also is expected to increase. That's a component where Europe is also not very competitive, because it's not just the energy costs that are higher than in the US, it's the network costs that are higher as well. But at the same time, we have more reliable grids. We have a system that functions slightly better, and we are more ambitious about expanding it and electrifying. So we're going to have to foot the bill for that as well. Then for the third component, which is the taxes and the levies, of course, you can do already some things with the energy taxation directive. You can decrease prices, taxes for energy-intensive industries quite a lot on electricity. But in the current fiscal restraints, that's going to be quite difficult. The same, I would say, probably applies for VAT. Yeah, it's a relatively efficient tax collection method for the Romanian government at the moment, the energy-related VAT taxes. I don't see us having the space to work with that too much. Then there's also obviously the levies and the subsidies that we have to pay for, all the capex intensive investments that we want to make in grids, that we want to make in renewables and so on. Here we're a bit lucky, I would say, because compared to a lot of Western European member states, it's effectively the Germans, the French, the Danes, the Dutch that are subsidizing a lot of that component in the Romanian bill. That's being done for the modernization fund. That's being done for the National Recovery and Resilience Fund. Basically, we're in a privileged position in which we can take out some of the cost of expanding our energy system from the consumer bill, and that's being socialized both at European level, but also for more general taxation. So having gone for all these components, my fear is that on the short term, providing relief is going to be quite difficult. Energy costs are likely to remain relatively high compared to other geographies. And the only thing that you can do basically is to play with some of these components, to reduce taxes for only one part of the consumer base, to improve access to affordable energy through PPAs for energy intensive, for examples. But this always will come with some distributive issues, because if you want to channel some of that cheaper renewable electricity towards energy intensives, that will ultimately lead to probably a higher bill for household consumers. Romania has been relatively different from the European model in this regard, because for us, the split between what households pay and what industry pays is relatively equal. This compares drastically to Germany, to France, where households, especially since the energy crisis, have been paying increasingly more than industry. But I think it's important, especially in Central Eastern Europe, where there's a high sensitivity to energy price spikes, to keep prices low, especially for the vulnerable consumers. I think the transition needs to happen in a way in which household consumers actually feel the benefits. And we need to make sure that any gains we might get from increasing the uptake in renewable energy is felt by them. Without that, I fear that we'll not have a lot of acceptability for the energy transition going forward. Now, that being said, I think it's important to work not just on the electricity prices themselves, where I think the toolkit in the currently fiscally restrained system is rather limited. I think it's also about working on the electricity to gas price ratio, because taxation is one of the problems there, of course. I would say that the energy price caps were a huge problem in this regard as well, especially for households, where switching to a heat pump, for example, did not make that much sense, given the caps at which gas and electricity were given towards the households consumers. And going forward, what we're doing right now is that we want to make investments in expanding the grids. We want to make investments in further uptake of renewable energy. And we're asking the consumers of electricity to foot the bill for most of these investments. So basically, we are trying to get people to electrify, but at the same time, we are actively contributing to making some of the cost components of energy higher. So it's a matter about how we make electricity more affordable so that all those efficiency gains from electrifying can be felt by consumers. It's a matter about implementing ETS and ETS2, and about using those revenues to further subsidize both electrification and renewable energy. And just one final thing that I wanted to say, which is a bit of a caveat to what Dana was saying earlier about the supply side subsidies that we need to see. I think we're at a time at which we need to look a bit more carefully at how we work on the demand side as well. Right now, because of all these price pressures I've mentioned so far, the electricity prices will probably not immediately decrease. It's not a very promising business proposition for both industry and some households to electrify. So we need to actually move to actually provide more directed support on the supply, on the demand side. So electrification for industry, electrification for households, electrification for SMEs.
Thank you, Mihnea. And I think it flows quite nicely, especially for your last points in terms of seeing the bigger uptake of the renewable integration into the market now, to both Liviu and Mr. Vishan's comment that is forthcoming. Liviu, I think I will start with you. One of the things that has been also mentioned in the fireside chat is that we have always seen the CFDs and PPAs as either or, but for the first time now in the action plan, we have seen the kind of the blended model put forward, where the European Commission is hoping to work with EIB. We have already seen the first tranche, at least the tease, the 500 million euros that would be used to counterparty the PPAs, and including the cross-border PPAs in a technology neutral way. Could you just talk a little bit about kind of your reflection on how Romania could benefit from this?
Hi, Tamara. Hi, everyone. Thanks again for the opportunity. So basically, jumping directly on the question without, let's say, some other things which initially I wanted to address. Why CFD and PPA together? Because basically, let's step back a little bit and think from the investor's shoes. You know, if 15, 20 years ago in renewable, you needed whatever it was in different countries, feed-in tariff, green certificates, any other subsidy schema, which was due to CapEx, you know, upon time, CapEx decreased, but we faced, starting, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, this huge unpredictability, which led that going as a merchant toward investing in the renewable project, and especially, for example, in wind energy, which is highly capex intensive, you know, you really need some things to hook on. You know, you need some leverages, you need some predictability, because otherwise investment or financing, let's put it like this, options are extremely hard to be met, you know, because the requirement coming regarding stability of revenues and so on is such unpredictable landscape, it's almost impossible to be met. And here we're discussing about everything which is evolving, I would say, even on a weekly basis, you know, from imbalancing to cannibalization to the grid side topics, which is also extremely important. And by the way, even us as a renewable representative, we're facing and we're always struggling to say the need in the investment in the grid in order to have a stable grid to be able to deploy this sustainable and green energy. But coming back to the questions, why CFD together with the PPA? So basically, putting beside this supporting mechanism, because a counterpart, when it's going into long-term PPA, basically one of the hardest things to tackle at this moment, putting aside the price, you know, is regarding the warranty, you know, because we're discussing high values, you know, and the cost associated to it might be quite a burden for both the customer and also the producer. So having such backing the PPA's intervention, definitely it's a very well or should be a very well received mechanism. Let's see how it works. Currently, actually, the main barrier in the, let's say, large deployment of PPAs, it's actually the unpredictability on the regulatory side, the unpredictability on the market. And until, because normally should be some, as we're having, for example, with the CFD, where you have a two-sided, you know, so basically you should have a both benefits, also the state and also the investors, from this type of unusual maybe evolution of the peaks of the prices. And this is why it's best to have such two-sided CFDs, you know, as a mechanism alongside with the PPA. But in order to have, you need somehow how to say it, the long-term stability signal. And through this, you are having a CFD. So you have already some price signal which you are setting for long-term, while at the same time, you can come up and have a, let's say, maybe near range PPA signed in between parts, which is backed in terms of guarantees by the state. So I think it might be a recipe that work. To be honest, we are in a very, how to say it, moving landscape. You know, some of the things may be solved through regulation. Some of the things will anyway be naturally pushed by the deployment of the storage, by the deployment of the demand side response, and all of these things, which anyway will happen with more or less intervention from the regulatory side, because market itself is somehow establishing itself. The only thing, and this is something which I'm always saying quite repetitively, you know, is that the time and the market is not forgiving anybody. So indeed, we are now facing some of the things maybe that we should have done some long time ago. I'm referring here especially on the grid, and hopefully, you know, the regulation should support more and more investment into the grid. Also, in terms of the flexibility needs, all the things which act like a whole, you know, in all of this puzzle. But again, I think we have the right tools way to do it. The only thing missing now, I think, is to hook on, shift away all of this mindset or expectation that gradually pop out since last year, that, I don't know, the sustainable transition, you know, the decarbonization and all of this might be again under question. And let's see if it's not. I think through all of the things already mentioned, Europe already said that there is no, how to say it, shifting from this trajectory, which in the end is the way to ensure sustainable security and all of this, how to say, characteristic of the energy which we need. So putting together, yes, should go both of them, because it's one is the trend setting, the other one should be the following, and backing up by this, I think it helps because the state can also benefit indirectly from such mechanism. I hope I answered.
Very much so, Olivier. Thank you very much. Mr. Bishan, to go back to your earlier comments, and just to, in your earlier comments, you have mentioned two prominent things. One is about the interconnectors, that actually Romania is doing quite a decent job in this regard. And interconnectors, both within the country and also cross-border, is one of the cornerstones of the action plan for affordable energy. So your reflection on the Romania's journey, which could be hopefully helpful also for other countries in the region, would be interesting to hear. But also to understand what is currently some of the challenges that you are facing for renewable energy integration within the Romania's energy market, and how does this affect on the final price?
Yeah, thank you. For me, it's interesting to discuss market issues because yeah, I'm also part of the CFD scheme, as you know, as a company and me personally. And I see a future, as you said, yeah, it could be a combination of the two of them, but really a functioning electricity market is, we know that is a basis for prosperity and competitiveness. And however, there is a lack of confidence among market participants in the framework conditions today. So, but it's not surprising because as adjustments to market rules to suit an increasingly decentralized electricity system have been neglected for years. Instead, almost every entry and exit to the market is controlled by energy policy, has intervened in electricity pricing. So the result is perverse, incentives that require constant repairs and intervention and so on and so forth. The big question, will electricity prices fall in the future? This is the question we cannot reply now, but the price of energy, as you know, is largely determined by the market model. And the spot prices, it's giving the trend. So the expansion of renewables energies, which really have a low production cost and virtually zero operating cost, is expected to lead to a significant reduction in electricity prices. However, this has not happened to this extent so far, as I've told you. So if we expect for the next generation and the next generation and next generation, I think it's like expecting something from God. And however, as has been already said, the unweighted average price remains more than twice as high despite the massive expansion of solar and wind power. And a paramount importance help to integrate renewables is for sure. Not only the idea of CFD or PPA for the future, but it's a capacity mechanism scheme, or at least a strategic reserve scheme, who has to be implemented in Romania. Nobody did anything as so far. This is one that we had. It has been assumed that electricity price would be even higher without this expansion. Can the cost savings from renewables be extrapolated to a 100 renewables electricity system? My simple answer is unfortunately not, because this is due to the need to provide electricity even during these hours when neither wind or solar power is generated. Even now, additional costs are incurred to cover such periods, which are not reflected in the low price of electricity. And this refers in particular to the payment of green certificate, renewable energy, to renewable energies to cover their investment, the infra-marginal technologies, and the prices of balancing market, which is very important, the capacity reserves for the balancing market. This latter one is intended to ensure that sufficient power plants are ready to generate electricity in case demand is not met during the peak periods. In addition, we benefit, and in my previous intervention, I told you, we benefit from integration to the electricity internal market, which allows us to cover our electricity needs from abroad. However, the grid congestion in the European system hinders the price leveling throughout Europe. And now, the new CFD scheme may be an incentive for renewables integration into the market, even though I believe, and maybe I will not be very nice saying that, the renewables technologies need in the future, no more state aid anymore. That is the second idea. And the third one is strengthening the future market. PPA, it's part of future market, but it's not the main part. We have to find hedging to find hedging requirements as a no regret option to strengthen the price signal even independently of the introduction of traditional capacity market. So the increasing integration of renewables into our electricity market also seems to be significantly less complex and more efficient than moving to a centralized control to subsidize for investment cost. So the goal for the future policy should be to increasingly encourage private investment and market-driven expansion. The government support schemes for renewable must not impair dynamic expansion through market mechanisms such as PPAs. And I believe that every new renewable energy investment framework should be measured by its compatibility with subsidy price expansion through PPAs. This should consider the impact of market values as well as the interaction of opportunities between subsidized and market-driven expansion. Realistically, though, the restructuring of electricity market cannot be happen overnight. I am a strong supporter of locational price of nodal prices, which also will fundamentally help renewable into the market. But during a transition period, a safety net is needed to shape the transition to a new world of electricity. This could take form of, for example, expanding power plant strategy or smart strategy reserve, as well as a transitional solution for regions that cannot expect immediate price reductions due to regionally differentiated electricity price. Either way, the direction needs to be right.
Thank you, Mr. Vishan, very much. We have one question in the chat, and looking for the volunteer from the panel to respond that given that Romania's grid already faces balancing challenges with renewables, how can a country like Romania move to a functional demand response market in the next years?
I think it's for the system operator, but if you either or you want to intervene, I can answer to yourself. For demand response, you should have what to control. Actually, where Romania has been left without any big industries to go for them when you need to a demand response, that is difficult. We have in our methodologies and in our NRA procedures, we have a control demand response and control dispatching for demand response. We can do by large electricity communities, but this is a very technical issue to be developed, and I think the renewables with electricity communities could do that in the future, even though the conditions for to enter into the market are very tough for our national load center, national dispatch. So it's not an easy task. We will have a methodology throughout Europe, and I hope our economy will give the chance to do that, because the consumption of Romania is very low compared with other countries. Our per capita consumption is very low, and this is hindering actually this demand response.
Thank you, Mr. Vishan. And before we have Mr. Constantinescu, maybe we can go in the rapid fire, 30 seconds, quick reflections. Starting with you, Mr. Constantinescu, if you're still with us.
Sorry, I need to leave. You would like reflections on what in particular now?
Rapid fire, closing remarks, anything you would like to see with the action plan unfolding, especially with the Romania's context.
I think in the Romanian context, and it was now in terms of electricity grid and all that, I think was quite well explained by Mr. Vishan. But I think Romania would need to look at a bit broader, have a more integrated approach to the energy system, not just the electricity, and furthermore to link it to some plans for industrial and for manufacturing, which are absolutely a pre-requirement for further development and for competitiveness of the Romanian economy. And I think these plans are even more necessary for Romania and for some countries in Southeastern Europe than in other countries. And then this can be better combined with the energy transition and with tapping the potential for renewables, looking at the necessity for storage, including large-scale storage and so on, and grid developments, but with the idea indeed that the energy system in the end will have to be developed on a cost-effectiveness basis without too much subsidies or without subsidies, but until to get there, it requires a clear vision, clear actions, and a clear investment framework. I think this is extremely important, both for the deployment, but also for the manufacturing of the technologies which will enter the market. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe we can continue with you, Ms. Daraban. Our webinar has been titled From Crisis to Resilience, Addressing Energy Affordability, Decarbonization, Competitiveness in Romania. And this is a question for all of you. What are you hopeful for within 1 minute?
I think what is what is about to come, based on all these papers that we see in discussion, or some are not yet published. I think shall address, I hope, my hope is that shall address all the lessons learned, and probably we can somehow generalize the best practices, because are good examples, unfortunately isolated examples, but are good examples of how, on how the things can move in the right direction. Strictly related to Romania, because Mr. Constantinescu have mentioned one element which, yes, it is very important, like energy losses, very important in terms of improving the efficiency of the investments in the grid. I have to mention the fact that sometimes the regulation and the legislative frame in Romania is not leading the investments in this direction. Mr. Constantinescu is very well familiar with some specifics on the Romanian market. He knows very well that Romania, somehow the legislative frame is setting some mandatory obligation for the investments in the grid, especially in the distribution. We have this system of so-called gratuities on the connections. We have some investments that are not necessarily based on economic efficiency, and all these investments are overlapping now with all these criteria so that European Commission is working on. I do not I do not debate the importance of these criteria, but I think certain elements about specific situation shall be considered. And probably in terms of regulation and framework, a more, let's say, a more specific regulation for Romania that will help Romanian authorities to take the right decision with the right in the right parameters will help us. I mean, in terms of regulatory frame, maybe some good examples and some more specific advice on how the regulatory frame for establishing the tariffs on the distribution system shall be implemented, because challenges are high and huge, definitely, but sometimes decisions are lacking the proper assessment and the balancing between short-term and medium-long-term benefits.
Thank you, Ms. Daraban. Mihnia, 30 to 45 seconds, what you are hopeful of.
Yeah, I'll be very quick. So I just wanted to say at the end that electrification is our safest bet. And I'm a bit more optimistic here than Liviu. I think that's increasingly understood in Bucharest as well. What we sort of forgot is that liberalized markets are essential for that. Yeah, and I think what Mr. Vișan was saying earlier about private-led investments is very important. I think in the thick of the political turmoil we've seen over the past few months, the last year, we forgot that price signals are very important, and those are essential to drive not just investments, but demand-side response, the other things that we've heard so far today. Just one more thing that I wanted to say to end with. We've heard from Ursula von der Leyen and from multiple Commission officials that this will be the implementation Commission. Well, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think in the Affordable Energy Action Plan, there's more of what we already had in place already. It's just a matter of implementing it. And I think with the electricity market design, for a very long time, the Commission has not looked properly into the implementation of the regulation directive that we have there. So let's just start from what we have, implement it, and then assess if that works or not.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mihnia. Liviu, what you're hopeful for in 30 seconds?
I'm hoping what is Mihnia hoping, so let's do what is written in the EU and in the local regulation. Yeah. So this, I think, should be the focus. And, we have AI, we have data centers, we have parts of the industry which needs to redo. And so, because normally let's use the clean energy, maybe opportunity to rehab it, maybe even as a nation, plan. So let's conclude as a positive, we have the homework, we just need to do them, and we have the fundamentals to do it in the right place. We have the EU funds for it, so let's just do. I would just conclude like that.
Fantastic. Mr. Vișan, what you're hopeful for? 30 seconds.
Yeah, for me, 15 seconds are enough. So a wise combination of electricity mix is the key for resilience and affordability. In 2026, 2027, we'll have new power plants, good for balancing or for keeping the base load. And together with the renewables in the system and the prosumers, we can have a very good mix combination. But higher prices are here to stay. We cannot beat around the bush. But having a very stable production combined with renewables with huge integration to the system, I think it's more reliable and more resilient and will be step by step more affordable, or at least acceptable for the consumers, because affordability means also acceptability. So the price could be high, but I can accept it in some conditions.
Thank you very much for finishing
You're welcome.
the positive note. I would really love to thank everybody who joined us today, to our distinguished speakers who are still on the call or who had to leave. I think it has been a very illuminating conversation. I regret that we didn't have just much more time to delve into the details of it. So thank you very much. We're going to follow up with more information to all the registered attendees. You will have the recording of the webinar. And I really hope that we will see each other on the other webinars of CEETalks. And a huge thanks to Energy Policy Group for their amazing work and dedication to the energy transition in Romania and wider Europe. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day.